Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Keeping It Real AFL Fantasy Podcast. I am Ace of the Spaceman and I'm joined by Nick, coach of Nalvinator. In this podcast, we will be chatting through Ashton and Friends Keepers League for AFL Fantasy, and we'll be going through each team's draft haul, talking about the best picks, the worst picks, chatting to different guests, different coaches of the teams in this league, as well as getting some special guests on the podcast. Mate, you excited about the year ahead?
G'day, Alex. Yes, I'm very excited, mate, and excited for the podcast as well. Not really sure how we got here, but very exciting. Not sure what is about to come out of my mouth in the next half an hour or so, but should be a good season of keepers ahead, mate. The format of our league that we've got going with Ashton and Friends is going to be 4 defenders, 6 mids, a ruckman, and 4 forwards, with 10 on the bench and then 20 keepers per year and 5 delistings. So obviously a lot of strategy had to go into the draft with 20 keepers each year and only 5 that can get cut off. So very, very important to nail your draft.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Very important. So basically the idea behind this podcast is that, Nick and myself are veterans of AFL fantasy. We've been doing it for 10 plus years in classic traditional draft league, but this year is actually our first foray into a keepers league. So we're kicking off what's essentially going to be a long-standing league.
We hope.
Could be another 10 plus years, who knows?
Yep.
But basically, we thought it was about time we brought our knowledge and AFL fantasy nous and shared it with the public, and essentially gave a running commentary on our teams and the teams we're competing with throughout the year, because we always do it, in our personal lives. So why not record it and share with the rest of our mates and the rest of the world?
Yeah. You said the name of the podcast, didn't you, when you first...
Yeah, the Keeping It Real.
Keeping It Real. So there was a few other suggestions thrown up. I liked Keeping It Neil. Obviously a play on words with Lockie Neal.
Being an AFL fantasy guru as well himself. One of the best.
Another one I liked was Flanders Keepers. Another play on words with an AFL player, but we've gone with Keeping It Real.
Also a nice little Simpsons reference there, which also, is playing a big part in AFL culture at the moment. You'll see on the Twitter spheres and things like that. But
yes, we love Twitter, don't we?
We do. However, my thoughts on Flanders Keepers is that it's a little bit too niche. Sam Flanders, up-and-coming young player, but not a guaranteed star, not ready to be the title of our podcast.
Well, someone hasn't been watching the preseason games. It's been very clear. Didn't you see his a couple of CBAs and high time on ground and a high fantasy score space?
Look, a couple of CBAs.
He's scrolling through, finding the scores. He hasn't been doing the research.
A couple of CBAs and one high score isn't enough to have your name, the title of our podcast. In my opinion,
Well, high draft pick, keepers league. I reckon he's got some longevity in the league, but maybe that's just me. That's fine. We can have a difference of opinion, but I'm happy with the name anyway. Keeping It Real. We're rolling with it. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's talk about our strategies for our draft rules coming into the league. Nick, why don't you kick us off?
I can kick us off. So firstly, I'll just get my team up. And yeah, very happy with my overall draft haul. I feel like I've got a good mix of high scorers to win the flag immediately, but also basically the 3 best young up-and-coming stars in the competition. So,
well, we'll get into your team in a sec, but why don't we talk about this strategy coming in? What were your thought process before? Did you do any preparation, any research?
So I was just getting to that if you'd let me speak. But
that's all right, mate.
So my strategy was to mix it in with mainly experienced high scorers that can win me the flag straight away, and not go for too many young up-and-comers. Having said that, when the young studs were on the board, I didn't want to let them slip through, because I was quite early on in the snake draft, which means if I let someone go, I was going to have to let them go all the way back and forth before they go back to me. So I went a little bit early on Will Ashcroft, but I'm happy with that.
Just a little bit, you reckon?
Maybe slightly. What pick was he? I think he was around the 50 that I took him. But like I say, I didn't want him. I couldn't forgive myself if he went all the way down the draft order and back, because I feel like he would have been taken if I let him slip through, because there would have been another 10 picks before my next pick. So probably went a bit early on Ashcroft, but I've got Dacos, Callahan and Ashcroft, and also some high scorers. But yeah, my strategy going into the draft was basically to get a couple of young guys, which I was able to do,
Mm-hmm.
but not get too many young guys who are sort of unproven and may not end up being, star players in the AFL. So I'm seeing guys later in the draft taking Jamara Ugle-Hagan and Cadman
Fools.
and these type of guys
Fools.
where they could take, 4 or 5 years to be good fantasy scorers. So I wanted to get the top end talent and then just a couple of young guys that I really rated, and I was happy with my draft haul.
Look, it's a bold strategy, Nick, but we'll see if it pays off.
We will. So, Space's team, the Spaceman, we'll get it up. Before we even look at your team, I want you to tell me about your draft haul.
Yeah.
Sorry, your strategy going into it.
A strategy going into it. So absolutely, Nick, happy to share. Not too dissimilar from yours, except I didn't have an Excel spreadsheet with every single player like you did. My research consisted of watching a few games, having the
You didn't watch Flanders' game?
a few games, mate. I got things to do. I got a life outside of AFL fantasy,
fair
believe it or not. But had the AFL.com mock 22 teams up just to reference who's probably likely going to start first, because they're the guys that have done the real research. Those journos working for AFL.com, so I was like, I'll back them in. And then I also had AFL.com's Ultimate Fantasy Cheat Sheet. Thought that was a great reference for me, especially as we got deeper into the nitty gritty later picks of the draft. Just wanted to find where those nuggets of gold could be and players that I could pick. So ultimately, my strategy was to get a good balance of young and old. I really didn't, like you, I really didn't want to sleep on the older proven fantasy players. So if you'll see in my team, particularly in my midfield, I finished off with the likes of Taylor Adams, Jack Viney, Dion Prestia. While they've never been out and out stars, like 110 average plus players, they've been proven performers for the last 5 or 6 years of 90, 95, 100 flat sort of scores. And I think they'll continue to do that for the next couple of years at least. And then provide some, experience in what is, I just think a pretty balanced team. So we'll go into our teams when we give the full analysis, but yeah, basically my strategy was just a good balance of young and old, but not sleeping on those, 28 to 29-year-old players who are those proven performers as well.
Okay, not a bad plan. Not convinced that you executed, but a good plan. But we'll go through that soon. But now we're just going to go through every team, and we're not going to go through every player that everyone's picked, but we might go through sort of maybe the best picks that they've got and maybe the worst ones. And looking at the first team I've got up, I think I know what the worst one was.
Whose team we got up here?
So I've got Pet Money Sniper up first.
Yep.
So quickly skimming over the back line, we're just going to give a quick review on the team. So he's gone Dawson, Young, Will Day, and Nick Blakey. Personally, I love that back line. Fair bit of youth, Will Day, Hayden Young, or they're all young really. And Dawson, a proven scorer. But now this is where things get really interesting. So do you want to talk us through his midfield, Ace?
Well, look, straight off the bat, we got Harry Perryman with his first pick of the midfield, and Pet Money.
That was a shock of the draft. He was the bolter, wasn't he?
He was a bolter, and it's not off brand for the coach of Pet Money Sniper to do something bold and a bit out there. And Harry Perryman as your first pick in your midfield certainly is that. So it's on brand for Pet Money Sniper, but I'm just not sure if Harry Perryman is a proven performance. And having spoken to the coach, off camera, he did say that he's heard that GWS rate Harry Perryman really highly internally.
He's got a source.
He's got a source, so that's where that pick came from in Petrus's mind. But if you go through the rest of his midfield, he's got...
Actually, before we move off on Perryman, I actually thought it was not a terrible pick. At first, I was very shocked, but then I sort of processed it all a little bit, and I thought, you know what, that's actually not a bad pick because he could get defender status. I'm pretty sure he's playing off half back a little bit. So once I sort of processed it all a little bit, I've sort of understood it a bit more. Although I think you sort of alluded to it. I was speaking to the coach of Pet Money Sniper as well, and he actually had no idea that he was playing off half back. So he just thinks he's an inside bull, and I think he's made a bit of an error there. So the next pick in his midfield was Ben Keys, who was quite similar because he's actually playing forward this preseason. And once again, I thought, yeah, pretty crafty pick, I reckon. He's going to get forward status in round 6, and he could be a long-term player in the forward line. But again, after speaking to him on Saturday night, no idea he was playing in the forward line.
Well, obviously we got different strategies, and everyone comes from like a different perspective and things like that. I would have thought that the first 2 picks, at least for your midfield, go for your out-and-out stars. Go for your proven performers. You don't want to take any risks early on. Those players aren't going to be on the board for very long. get in while you can early. And, I think it's safe to say Perryman, maybe Keys not so much, but Perryman probably would have been on the board for another 3 or 4 more rounds at least.
If drafted at all.
If drafted at all. But, as I said before, not off brand for Pet Money Sniper. These bold picks are quite commonplace with him. But, at least he's made up for it with his ruck choice, Nick.
Yeah, so big Tim English. Pick him, forget about it for the next 10 years. He'll be his ruckman. So good sound pick. He got him pretty early. For rounding off the midfield, Josh Ward, Warple, Tim Kelly, and Dill Stevens. So look, we'll wait and see. I love the Josh Ward pick. Warple will wait and see, and Dill Stevens is a high draft pick, so hopefully he can come on.
Well, you just brushed over Tim Kelly there, and what I'm hearing out of the Eagles camp at the moment is he's in tip-top shape and fit as ever, and perhaps even harking back to his Geelong days.
Well, you'd hope so. Now on to his forward. So Dylan Moore as a very early pick for him. Nice selection. Darcy Cameron, there was a bit of controversy in the chat there around Mason Cox taking the number 1 ruck role at Collingwood. Not sure if that's the truth or not, but that caused a bit of a stir in the chat. Liam Baker and Kyle Langford.
Well, yeah. Well, let's just quickly touch on his forward line there. So Dylan Moore, to me, I feel like I watched enough footy last year, and had my finger of the pulse of what was going on. But to me, this kid's just come out of absolutely nowhere. I struggle to comprehend how he's averaging 93, but apparently he is. Does he take it up another level in season 2023? Does he maintain, or, is he now a bit of an experienced head in that forward line, given how young Hawthorn's team is?
Yeah, I'd love to sort of come in and say that, I've seen a lot of Dylan Moore play, but I can't say I have. I feel like everyone just thinks it's a given. He's a really good fantasy scorer and he's a really good young player. But has anyone actually ever seen him play? I don't think I have.
I don't think.
But apparently he's a very good player, and I'll trust everyone's opinion on that. We won't go through the whole bench, but maybe we'll just pick the best pick of his bench.
Yeah.
Will Setterfield, he's going to have some midfield minutes at Essendon. Xavier Dersma, he had a bit of a down year last year.
He's due to bounce back.
I reckon he will. Connor McDonald's got forward status. Hopefully he keeps that long term. Mitch Owens, Lockie Hunter. Look, nothing's jumping off the page for me here.
I tell you what is jumping off the page for me here, and that's Miles Bergman. I reckon he's just an absolute young star.
So he's got the 2 Port wingmen.
2 Port wingmen. I reckon that, Bergman's going to make that second wing his own for season 2023. And I reckon he's prime position to average anywhere between 75 and 95 this season.
Don't mind it. Good long-term pick. But overall, we're rating Pet Money Sniper. Hard to compare because it's the first one we've gone through, but look,
I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10.
Yeah. I'll give it a 6. I reckon you could have done a little bit better there.
Yeah. But a couple of bold picks and, Keepers League, they could pay off in the next few years. Who knows?
So next up, and interesting here, because I thought Asher Lanch was dead.
Well,
I thought he'd rebranded to Mode's Men.
That's a real curveball.
But Asher Lanch is back, baby.
Wow, Asher Lanch, another veteran of AFL fantasy.
And keeper, apparently.
And Keepers League as well. But during the draft period, his name was Mode's Men.
So I'm not sure. He's rebranded again, going back to the proven success.
That's a lot of money wasting on 2 rebrands. But, another bold decision by another coach and, Asher and friends.
Yeah.
But, let's kick it off with his team.
So McGrath, great choice. Vice captain, added responsibility. See, a lot of people are buying into people being added to the leadership group, people being upgraded to vice captain or captain and thinking, you know what, Jordan Dawson's the captain. That means he's going to score better in fantasy. I am the polar opposite to that because I feel like if you're named captain, I reckon there's going to be an increase in 1%ers, in spoils, in team acts, not cheap kicks. That's my take on it.
Well, I think a perfect example that, counters what you just said is Shannon Hearn. As soon as he got made captain, he started becoming one of the best averaging defenders in the league, and obviously he's had a down period in the last year, given his age. But when he was made captain, coming off a half-back flank, he got given 2 All-Australians and was averaging around 95 for a few years there. So, interesting. I think McGrath himself is due for a breakout year. We've been saying that for the last 3 years, but let's see if it actually happens in 2023.
Yeah, so back to half-back where he was drafted out of, and hopefully he can have a great year. Heath Chapman, love the pick. Reckon it was a little bit early, but love the pick. Long-term player. Going to have the ball in his hands a lot for Freo half-back if Hayden Young doesn't have it himself. Liam Duggan, sound pick, and Jack Bowes. I reckon that's a pretty good back line.
I think he's done really well with that back line.
And I've got to say, I love his midfield.
Do you?
I really do.
What do you like about it?
Well, he's gone early on Sam Walsh. Why wouldn't he? He's injured this year, we all know, but this is a 10-year competition.
Yeah.
Sam
Do
Walsh.
we know when he's due to come back?
Oh, who cares? He's going to have him for 10 years.
Yeah, great.
I think he's around round 6 or something like that. So great pick. Zach Merritt, Caleb Sarong, Will Brodie, Matt Rowell, Sam Berry. What are the trends you notice in that midfield, Alex?
Inside Bulls.
Yes, but also all very young.
Well, Merritt's,
Got a lot. He's the oldest there, but he's still got plenty of footy ahead of him.
Coming
Caleb
into his
Sarong
11th year,
going
Zach
to be a
Merritt.
superstar. Will
True.
Brodie had a great year and he's just going to keep getting better, you'd think. Matt Rowell, big year for him.
I think we're all just waiting for Matt Rowell to explode. Showed that promise early on in those first few games in 2020. Obviously hasn't quite lived up to the hype with injuries and form. But, he's been back for a full season now, and I think it's about time we start seeing the best of Matt Rowell again.
And then rounding out his midfield with another great pick in Sam Berry.
Why is that a great pick?
I was eyeing him off in my draft board on my big Excel spreadsheet for a long time.
Yeah. Was he highlighted?
He was highlighted
Yeah, wow.
in yellow as a target for me on my Excel spreadsheet. Love him firstly because he had a great season last year. He tackles. He finds contested ball. Great for Dream Team.
Yeah.
But something very underrated, he's had a number change.
Now, what number is he changed
He's number
to?
3, and he suits it perfectly.
What was he before?
21, I believe.
Oh, yeah, he didn't say 21 at all.
So he is primed for a big year
It's
in number
Quinton Lynch
3.
territory.
Caleb Sarong.
He's a star, young star.
So,
But thing with these three midfielders that aren't Andy Brayshaw, you've now got Jaeger O'Meara into the mix. Are they going to be taking points off with each other? Is it going to be a Western Bulldog situation where they're all stars averaging 100 plus? It's just tough to know.
yeah, I mean, we were just talking about Sam Berry, so I'm not sure what you...
Caleb
so you've gone back to Caleb Sarong.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought we moved on from
No,
Caleb.
you actually went back to Caleb Sarong.
No, I'm saying Caleb Sarong was also number 3, and I reckon they both suit the number 3 very well.
Okay.
And it's going to elevate his game, Sam Berry. But yes, you're right about Caleb.
Yeah, so you agree that, not guaranteed to be a big scorer. Do you think they could just balance each other out? Jaeger,
Sarong.
Caleb,
I think Sarong will average
Brodie.
95 because O'Meara is similar to Mundy's role last year, and 5's
true.
not going in there. So,
True.
yeah, I think Sarong's primed. Scotty Lycett, he left LaRuck pick to late, which I would have done too if Grundy wasn't available for me. So once you miss out on that first bracket of rucks, you basically say, I'm just getting one of the last pick rucks. I don't really care. And I think that's what he's done with Scotty Lycett. But honest pick.
Well, I've heard that Bryn Teagle has been taking a lot of CBAs ahead of Scotty Lycett.
I think he started in the ones in one of the preseason intra clubs, but no, I think Lycett will be there round 1. Forward line looks good. Cogs, Tanner Bruin, got a big future ahead of him. Fifey and Ben Ainsworth, high draft pick, who will be playing in a better Gold Coast team this year. I think more opportunities.
But is he going to be pushing up the ground a little more? Is he going to be staying as that small forward role? Because there's not many points to score when you're playing in that permanent small forward position.
Yeah, well, Ben King's going to be crashing the packs, mate. He'll have the crumbs and kicking goals, so I reckon he's going to have a big year. High draft pick, similar to McGrath. He was in that same draft.
Yeah,
so
he was.
I reckon they're sort of primed for big years this year.
Just going back to his forward line, sorry to cut you off there, Nick. Tanner Bruin, as your second pick forward.
Yep.
Is he in Geelong's best 22?
Yes.
Does Mock
Okay, moving on. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's going to have a big year.
Is Ollie Henry in their best 22?
Well, I'm not sure, but he's going to be playing round 1 with Tom Hawkins out.
Ollie Henry, a direct replacement for Tom Hawkins.
Yep. Not direct replacement, but he's a similar sort of... I think he's 190. He's not a big, obviously, key forward, but they'll have Cameron...
Not a Radaglia as a direct replacement?
Oh, mate, he's playing centre half back Radaglia, isn't he? Oh no, you can't have a podcast and not know these things. Another trend on his bench I've noticed, all very young, or majority. So he's gone Phillips, Erasmus, Rochelle, Matty Johnson, Cowan, Bailey Humphrey, Jake Bowie, all young guys who are, hopefully going to have long careers. Interesting, he went Erasmus before Johnson in the drafts. Johnson's been playing ahead of him in the preseason. He's played a couple of halves for Freo. I think Erasmus will start at Peel. But he must rate Erasmus higher than Johnson. He's also gone Toby McLean as a forward status.
Toby McLean, a former star in AFL fantasy. Maybe he is due to, find that, 2017, 2018 form again.
Yeah, and I like Nick Newman as his first defender on the bench with Jake Bowie to develop there.
Yeah, I like how he's got Seb Ross there as well. Balances out that really young...
Yeah, the old head.
Yeah.
I quite like that team. It's the best we've seen so far, but it's only had Pet Money Sniper
certainly
to
the
compete
best
with.
we've seen so far. I'll give that 7.5 in my books.
Look, I honestly don't think he could do much better. I'm going to give him a 9 there.
Wow.
So up to Woods and Trushalanch Suck. Very creative name.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Now, I feel just personally looking straight at this team, I think the Gold Coast bias might have got to him here. Big
You
Gold
reckon?
Coast supporter. So
who
Brandon
have we
Ellis,
got?
Tuke Miller very early in the draft.
Tuke Miller's not a biased pick, is he?
Well, depends how early he went from him and
Well,
who he
he's
skipped over to
one
get
of the
him.
best players in the draft. You would have thought.
I'm just pointing out how many Gold Coast players he has in his
And
team.
Sam Flanders, your man
Alex
as well.
Davies. Yes, Flanders, who the podcast should have been named after. Anyway, enough on Gold Coast. Dan Houston, Bailey Dale, Brandon Ellis, Christian Salem.
Very solid backline.
Yeah, Salem was an interesting one in the draft because he's got, is it a thyroid something infection, or he's got some weird injury that I googled and didn't know what it meant, and it seemed very strange, and I was too scared to take him in the draft. So an
uncertain pick when you don't know what he's got.
Well, yes, but he slid in the draft, so I think there was still value there, and if he can get back to his best, then it's definitely a bargain buy. Look, reasonable backline. So Salem won't be playing. Who's he's got in the bench for his backline? D'Ambrosio, Braden Campbell. So he's a bit under the pump in the backline, I reckon. But
I got to say, I've just taken a glance at his midfield.
And yes, so have I. And oh boy,
what a
formidable
star-studded midfield he's got. We started with Tuke Miller, Jack McRae, Josh Kelly, Lockie Neal, Jai Newcomb, and Jaeger O'Meara.
Yep, that wins the midfield so far, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
We all know about these players. We don't need to comment too much of them.
And Jai Newcomb as well, which is up and coming, so he'll be averaging 100 plus this year in my books.
Yep. Toby Nane-Curvis, similar to Boat as Scotty Lycett, probably the slight tier above.
Yeah.
Once you miss out on those top rucks, you just get someone late in the draft.
Safe bet, he'll be averaging 80 plus this year.
Now he's gone a bit of youth in this forward line with Isaac Smith, the old head, with them.
Well, he's definitely gone midfield heavy looking at this forward line. Tom Powell is your first pick. I don't mind it. Probably not as a first pick. He's got tremendous upside and got the mid-forward status as well. What have you been hearing out of North Melbourne camp? Is he going to get much midfield time this year?
I think so, yeah. High on the CBAs.
Yeah.
He was on my Excel spreadsheet when I was going through the draft.
Yeah.
The interesting one, not just with him, but with all players going forward, is going to be who maintains a forward status. So Tom Powell, if he's playing, high midfield minutes.
You mean as throughout the years?
Yeah, so throughout the years. So Tom Powell, I feel like Sam Flanders can maintain his forward status, and so can Zach Bailey.
Yeah.
Isaac Smith's obviously going to be retiring soon, but Tom Powell, I feel like he is one that probably won't maintain his forward status. So good pick for now, even though he's a young player. But then going forward, I'm not sure how he breaks into this midfield.
I don't think he does break into this midfield for at least the next 5 years, in my books.
He can probably replace O'Meara in the next couple.
But it's a real wait and see with keepers league.
Yeah.
Maybe he will keep his forward status. Maybe he will be one of those midfielders who kicks 20 odd goals and AFL Fantasy just give him a forward status for 2024.
Yeah, not a bad problem to have, I don't think. Anyone stand out on the bench? I've got one that stands out straight away. It's George Wardlaw, the high pick.
Go on.
So that's clearly a pick for the future. Ollie Hollands as well. I was really eyeing off Ollie Hollands.
Yeah, me too. I was.
He was one where I thought, I don't think he gets through the whole snake draft all the way up and then back to me.
Yeah.
But I took the risk and he got snapped up.
Yeah, not surprised there. He's already been named to play round 1 on Thursday night. So another really good pick there from, what's his team called again? Trashalanch. But I also like Alex Davies as well. He's a really good up-and-coming young player.
CBAs.
High CBAs. We've been checking the Ultimate Family cheat sheet there.
Tuke didn't play though. So
that is true. But I think, Stewie Drew's backing him in to take those CBAs, even in a preseason game. I think that's a really good sign going forward.
I like it. He's gone very young on the bench, so hopefully some of them come on and become really good players. But I think this is an example of one of those teams that has gone quite young on the bench, and it'll be interesting to see if they're just developing for years and don't end up breaking into his 22 or his however many people on the field. But I don't mind it. A lot of good young talent there. I'm giving that. It's somewhere in between the two. If Pet Money Sniper was a 6 and Asho was a 9, I'm giving that a 7.5.
I'm giving that a 7. Can't give it more than what I gave Avalanche.
Okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So,
Another veteran.
yeah, well, I would have thought the name would have changed when Lobi retired and come up with something a bit better, but
Well,
he's
see, that's
maintained
what
it.
our problem would have been if Flanders O'Neill retired and we were still going.
See, everyone, even if Lachie Neale's retired, he's still going to be a Brownlow medalist, maybe 2-time Brownlow medalist, and everyone still knows who Lachie Neale is. Sam Flanders, I think you underrate him. You clearly didn't watch his preseason game. He's going to be a really good player for the next.
Not worthy to name our
least 10
podcast
years.
after. We can go back and forth on this all day, Nick, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree on that. James Sicily.
Safe bet.
This is going through Obi-Wan Kenobi. Sicily, I noticed with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he didn't really go. Because he was next to me in the draft, and I noticed a trend that he was going all young, or not young players, but all that sort of 21 plus age, which I think is a really smart way to go. When I say 21 plus, sort of in between 21 and 28, around that age.
So
and
no
I reckon
super veterans and no young drafties from the last couple of years.
I feel I got a bit of an advantage because I knew I thought he wasn't going to take the older guys who would still score well, and I thought they'd sneak through to me.
Yeah.
Because I did notice that trend in his drafting, but I think his team's good. Sicily, Redmond, Luke McDonald, Ryan Burton. Luke McDonald's a captain, so he should score well this year.
Well, according to some theories, and James Sicily as well.
Yeah, Alex Pearce. Is he going to score well this year because he's captain now?
He certainly won't.
Okay.
Not in my books anyway. But Mason Redmond, I don't mind that pick. He's been a solid scorer for the last couple of years. But he's going to take that next level.
Yeah. Well, he best and fairest last year, I think. Big breakout. Bit of ball down there in the Essendon backline, I reckon, again this year. So, pretty good pick. Midfield, it's
had
a good
the number
midfield.
one pick of this draft. You went for Andy Brayshaw.
Who would you have gone if you had pick one? Because I had pick two, and I didn't care who I got out of the two options.
Well, I think I would have gone Brayshaw as well.
Yeah.
Also for longevity, you've got to think about as well. Was one of the number one scorers last year, and he's still, 24?
He's our age.
24. There you go.
I'm 23. I'm a bit younger.
So, yeah, I think it was an excellent pick. No-brainer. Can't complain.
Yep, good pick. I went Dunkley at 2 and wasn't really fussed either way, but I think Dunkley will just be a mid next year anyway. So I think long-term that was the right pick. Petrarca and Anderson, Geordie De Goey. See, I'm really considering Geordie De Goey in Classic at 700k.
So am I, and I'm shocked that Geordie De Goey lasted that long. I had my eye on him.
Yeah, he was highlighted on my spreadsheet, that's for sure.
So yeah, great pick, and to close out his midfield, he's gone for Chera and Dom Sheed. Chera, I think, what did he average last year? And then
I don't know what he averaged last year, but I've been seeing a stat floating around Adam Chera.
Yeah.
And it said when Sam Walsh is out of the team, I think he goes at 110s.
Wow.
So I was watching him very closely in the preseason.
Well, how many games did Walsh miss last year?
I do not know that off
If
the
it
top
was
of my
one or
head.
two games.
No, it was at least 3.
Okay.
But I was watching him very close in Classic, but then in the preseason he stunk it up and hardly touched it. So he was out of my Classic team, but good pick.
Now, Dom Sheed, probably more of a value pick in Classic at his price of 500k. Probably borderline draft, and I think last pick of your midfield is probably about where I'd see him sitting, or first pick on the bench.
Yep.
So not really too many complaints for me. I think overall it's a really strong midfield.
Yep, I go with that. Sean Darcy, so there's the Jackson factor. He's going to be sharing loads with him, but great pick. Next 10 years, he'll be your ruckman, you'd think.
Is the Jackson factor, are we downplaying the Jackson factor though?
What, you think it can help him, or will it be a disadvantage to his scoring?
I think it will be a disadvantage to his scoring, a benefit to Fremantle Dockers as a team, but Sean Darcy as an individual fantasy scorer, I can only see it being a bad thing.
Yeah, hard to disagree. The question is, does he just go forward more instead of...
Is he good up forward?
Yeah, he can take a mark. He's improved it.
Yeah?
I think
so.
so.
He go?
But I do think he'll be going ruck bench, and Jackson will be going sort of, a mixture of more forward ruck and bench. So
it will be
I think you're right.
It will be interesting to see what Freo do with Jackson's role this year. There was when he got picked up, there was a bit of the Mark Blitzarv's role being thrown around a little bit. So it will be interesting to see if it's just more, if they play Darcy and Jackson both in that CBA. But, we'll see how it unfolds.
Yeah. So I think we've realised why his backline and midfield was so strong, because I've just scrolled down to his forward line.
Oh, God.
And oh my goodness.
Oh, dear me.
Nick Martin as the first pick.
Well, I'm not, first pick, probably not. Second pick, I'm big on, because I'm a big Nick Martin fan myself.
Second year Blues this year, maybe?
Oh, I don't subscribe to second year Blues. I think people pick and choose, a player having a bad second year. Classic example is second year Blues. Well, why not the third or fourth year? I think it's just as common a thing. I think Nick Martin, with a new coach, could be reinvigorated to take another step up.
Apparently he has had a good summer. I'll give you
He
that.
has had a good summer.
That's my mail.
Heard whispers?
Had a big summer.
Yeah. I think Brad Scott will be good for the young fella, and I don't think it's all doom and gloom with Nick Martin as your first pick, but not ideal, obviously. It was tough pickings this year for forward line anyway.
The forwards drop off very quickly.
So Nick Martin, not ideal, but looking at his midfield, understandable.
Yeah. Tom Papley, look, I've got no idea what he would be averaging. 71 last year. Look, he's hit or miss. Small forwards, you know how they are.
I know.
They'll kick goals. And now the next pick, I'm really keen to get your thoughts on the next pick here.
Ooh, Brad Hill is your third pick in the forward line. He's done me real dirty, Brad Hill, the last couple of years.
Hang on.
Yes.
He may have done you dirty, but you brought this on yourself.
I did bring it on myself. To give you a bit of context, I had Brad Hill in my starting classic team last year.
Look, gutsy move, point of difference.
Point of difference, and there was all the signs are pointing to yes in the preseason, in, building in his previous year as a Saint. All signs are pointing to yes. And round 1 or round 2 from memory, real good score. And in between there was a pretty mid score. And then he just stunk it up for the next 2-3 weeks. I'm talking 30s and 40s. 30s and 40s in my classic team, which you just can't have. And then I traded him out.
Yeah, fair enough. It's sunk cost. Get rid of him. He's gone.
Get rid of him. Then a couple of weeks later, I was in a position where I needed a mid-price defender.
Oh, no. What'd you do?
Well, I got him back in my team because he had a real good week the week before. And I was like, well, maybe those...
Hang on, so you've traded him out and then he's had a good week, has he? Or a good couple of weeks?
Look, it was more of a price-driven decision. As always, budget is, limiting. And Brad Hill was the best pick in my budget. And if it was still early enough in the season to think that maybe those 2 stinky scores that he got could have been outliers. But look, I made a decision to get him in again, and the decision was the wrong decision. Right. And I'll wear that. I'll put my hand up. I'll say, bad move as coach. I'll face the media on that one, and, I'll take the hit. And I did. And it probably impacted the rest of my season in a tremendous way.
Yep. Next up, Ben Long. Don't know anything about him, to be honest. Average 57 last year. New club. Don't know. See how he goes.
There is the old adage that, I think it's more of a perception anyway, that when a mid-average player changes clubs, now he's going to average well.
Yeah, don't mind that.
But I don't know if that always is the case. It worked for Will Brodie last year.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
Worked for Will Brodie last year, but I just think that came with opportunity. I don't think that necessarily came with him moving club. Or you know what I mean. But you know what? We'll see. Weren't many forwards on the board this year. There's going to be a lot of dud picks in your forward line.
So I assume Ben Long's playing backline and Will Powell and Lockie Weller will be coming back. So it'll be interesting if him and Constable stay in the team. I think Ben Long's playing back, but wait and see. Kitty Coleman on the bench with Giath.
Yeah.
Ollie Florent. I was looking at Ollie Florent. I thought he used to play forward, but apparently he's a defender and has played defence the last few years, which is news to me. But
I just don't see him averaging more than 68, 69, whatever he's on now. He's been around for, a good 5-6 years. I think if he was going to be a big scorer, he'd be a big scorer by now. He's just not. I could be eating my words in a couple of weeks, but yeah, good bench pick in my books.
Yeah, not bad. I was looking at him too. Goda, I was looking at him. Half backer / wing, interceptor, and run and carry. Good long-term pick. Max Holmes, I love it.
Love it.
Can he break into the midfield in your team? He'll definitely break into the Geelong midfield. I think he takes Dom Sheed's spot pretty soon if it's not in the first couple of weeks of this season. He's out for blood this year, I reckon. I think he's out on the flag.
The year of Max Holmes.
Billings on the bench. He's broken his leg, I think. Sheldrick, inside bull. Can he get in the team, though? McInerney, backup ruck. Tommy Lynch, if he's playing an average side, you could put him on the field, hoping he'll kick a bag. Oh, mate, he's got to be ahead of Ben Long, doesn't he? Anyway.
We'll see.
Oscar Allen. Not sure about that one. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I reckon he's a 7.
I'll give him a 7 as well. So still Asher Lance ranking number 1.
I'm next, but I think we'll do our teams last.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think we will.
Tickle my Taranto.
Don't mind it.
So he's got a team name that's an AFL player.
Yeah, well, it'll be good for him as long as Taranto sticks around, but,
I guess you can change the team name. You can't really change a podcast name.
No, you can't once you got that brand recognition.
So Doherty, one of the best picks.
Can't go wrong.
Aaron Hall, I actually really like this because he slid a bit, and I was looking at him. He can go 150 in North Melbourne's back line.
He can, but is he... I just feel like he's the type of player that Alistair Clarkson won't rate.
Yeah, maybe that's right. But Birchall, I can imagine take it because I've got Zeeble, I think.
At least Birchall defended. I don't think Aaron Hall's ever defended in his life.
But you need those, like, don't know. I'm not going to comment on the Alistair Clarkson's game style. I don't know
Look,
much
Alistair
about
Clarkson's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
We're not ready to delve into him on the podcast, I don't think, anyway. But
Yeah.
Aaron Hall, good. He belongs in the back line.
It's worth a risk,
and
is what I'm
I
saying.
think as your second defender, I think that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. So Doherty, Aaron Hall, Mitch Duncan.
Duncan's a slider. You know,
Well-
obviously he's a veteran and he's an old head, but he's capable of those big scores.
I hope he wins the flag this year because this is an absolute retirement home of a back line. Ruben
Except he's
Jimby,
got
though.
Jimby.
Yes, but does he keep the backline status going forward? I'm not sure. I think he's going to be an inside bull for the Eagles for a long time. Not sure he keeps the backline status, but he'll be good enough to be in their midfield, in his midfield. Jack Steele, Bont, Jaden Short, good pick. He'll get backline status, replace Jinby. I like it. Kyle Amon, Cam Guthrie, Matty Kennedy. Pretty solid midfield. I think Bont's going to win the Brownlow this year.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild.
Had a big summer, like
Yep.
a lot of players.
Yeah, I've heard.
But he's
Tearing the house down.
He's come out in the media and he's basically said, I don't know if he was asked about it directly, but he's not shying away from the fact he wants to be the best player in the comp.
Love that.
So very bold. Dunkley's out. Hunter's out. He's going to dominate in there. He's not going forward because I've got all the big tall forwards. Lock him in the midfield. He's winning the Brownlow this year.
I also like Kyle Amon as a pick. I think he can score really well in a really young Hawthorn team, and he's already a decent scorer at Port Adelaide. So I think in an even younger team where he's an experienced head in that midfield, I think he'll do really well.
Yeah, Max Gordon in the ruck, good pick. Don't need to comment on that one. Gresham, Horn Francis, good pick.
Great pick.
I was looking
Great
at him.
get. Yeah.
Sheasel and Hobbs, he's gone very young in that forward line.
Yeah.
So I think this is the perfect example of going a little bit too young.
Well, he's gone a little bit too old in his back line, so
Maybe he's tried to compensate.
but is it worth compensating like
Oh,
for
no, I looked at his
defender to
bench.
forward line, or do you need to have the balance in the position? So balance of young and old in the forward line, balance of young and old in the back line. Because you can't just have old in the back line like he's done, because they could all be done in the next 2 to 3 years, and then none of those forwards can go back. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, and I've just kept looking down and seen his bench, and geez, he's gone real young on some of these. It reminds me of the GWS Giants when they first started. So they had obviously the young draftees, and then they had the James McDonald, the Dean Brogan, and all these types, the real old ones, and then the real young ones. I feel like that's the approach he's taken. I'm not sure it translates into AFL fantasy keepers, as it does to the GWS Giants. But look, Jamara Ugelhagen, look, is he ever going to be a starting for keeper? He could be a very good AFL player, but in terms of AFL fantasy, is he ever going to be in your starting four? I'm not sure. Just because he's number one draft pick doesn't mean he will be. Sam Darcy as well, Aaron Cadman. Geez, I'm seeing a trend here with the young high draft pick key forwards.
I just want
Sardis.
I think a real interesting pick, and I'm super keen to see how he goes this year, is Dane Zorko.
Yeah, me
Obviously
too.
a much maligned player.
Jeez, he burnt us last year.
He burnt us multiple times in my fantasy days, but he's obviously been a big scorer in his time. He's almost got pig status and a veteran of the fantasy forward line. But with all these new stars coming to the Brisbane team, I think he just gets pushed out in terms of scoring. He'll obviously hang around the Brisbane team, but I don't see him having too big of an impact on fantasy this year.
I like it. Good late pick though. Next up.
So what do we rate Tukumai
Of
Taranto,
course.
Sam?
I think he started out really well, but he's just gone too young. I'm giving him a 6.5.
I'm with you there, Nick. I'm giving him a 6.5 too.
Didn't do the research. Lincoln's selection of players.
Yes.
Starting with the back line. Jake Lloyd is his first defender. And now, at the surface, you look at Jake Lloyd in your back line, and I think you go, that looks pretty safe back there.
What do you think?
I think Nick Blakey is taking his kicking role. And I think Jake Lloyd, similar to last year, is going to be more of that lockdown defender. And I think Link maybe hasn't quite done the research there in the preseason.
What was Jake Lloyd averaging last year?
91.
Solid contributor. Do you think he just maintains that 91, or do you think he potentially loses?
I think he
to the
goes.
80s?
I think he's an 84 this year.
He's an
average.
84. Yeah.
Nick Blakey
Hard to
taking
disagree.
kickouts.
Yeah.
Caleb Daniel, bit of midfield minutes, I think. So good
Yep.
pick. Lockie Weller coming back from an ACL, good long-term pick, I think.
Is he playing round one, Lockie Well?
Nah, him and Will Powell are a bit off.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins playing in the midfield for Geelong as a defender in fantasy is a good pick.
Lots of tackles as well for him in that midfield.
Clary Oliver, Chad Warner, Hugh McCluggage, Roe Bottom, Libba, Mason Wood.
I think before we get to Wood, who is a bit of a wild card, I think. I'm not really too sure how he's going to go, especially in a much depleted Saints team. He might be getting a lot more of the ball, playing on a wing. But I think take Wood out of it, that is a perfect example of a good balanced team, in my view.
agree. Pretty young. Oliver's that perfect age for keeper, I reckon.
Mhm.
Already a superstar and still got years left.
Well, I think he's got an absolute bargain with Warner because I think he's going to be an absolute superstar. And getting him in as your second mid, I can see him averaging 105 plus this year.
Yep. Jared Witts is the ruck. That's where the rucks drop off. I reckon he's the last one.
Mm-hmm.
So good pick to get him in time. Rosie, Errol Goulden. He's been the talk of the preseason.
He has been. He's been the talk of the town, and I think he's done an absolute ripper job with those first two picks in that forward line. Connor
very
Rosie,
good picks.
star. You'll keep him in that team for the next 10 years at least. Errol Goulden, obviously had that 40 possession, 3-goal game in the preseason. Does he continue that form into the regular season? I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Two great forwards this year. Will they maintain forward status going forward? I don't know.
Cam Rayner, I'm not. Again, slim pickings for the forward line this year, and Cam Rayner has got upside, but we just haven't seen it yet at AFL level being a fantasy ball.
Yeah, so he's been playing a little bit of halfback in the preseason, but I'm not sure they're going to follow through with it. So I don't mind the pick, given that he could go to halfback and take those uncontested marks and kick-ins and whatnot. So I think it's a good pick on the off chance that happens, and the chance that he sort of breaks out and becomes a sort of like Petrarca and these kind of powerful early picks that take a few years to come on.
Yep.
Goey as well.
Yeah.
So I like the pick. Once he's sort of on the board, it had to be done. Brad Close as the last forward, sound pick to round out your forward line.
Yeah, I just don't know about Brad Close. Going to his bench now. Now, first off, starting off, friend of the podcast, Ed Allen.
Yeah, so he sort of slid down the draft order a little bit.
Had my eyes on him.
Yeah, not for the first time.
Yeah.
Good pick. Long-term player, obviously young developing player, but I like the pick. I was eyeing him off, I must say, and I was pretty flat that he got him before me.
Yeah, he got him in the pick before I was going to get him, to be honest. But, again, sound pick. Do you think he might play round 1, round 2?
No comment.
No comment. Easy.
Tom de Koning.
Great pick.
Good pick. Good
Great
backup
pick.
ruck. Yeah, I like it. Good. I reckon out of the backup rucks, that's probably one of the ones you'd want.
I think he's absolutely nailed those first two picks of his bench. I think Tom de Koning was the perfect choice. The great keepers league. I think Pitnet's still got that number 1 ruck position at Carlton, but even halfway through the season, I can see TDK taking over.
Yeah, he should have taken it over it last year already, in my opinion. Dylan Shield, I was eyeing him off for some midfield depth. I might be trying to trade for him because my midfield gets a bit thin.
We'll get to that.
Good pick. He'll be averaging around the 85, 90, I reckon. Jai Clark, obviously early draft pick. He'll be hoping he can become a really good player.
Yeah.
Caulfield, don't mind it. Coming back from an ACL, so he'll take a bit of time. Laddams, he's gone 2 rucks on the bench. What's he doing?
I think that's just a waste of a draft pick.
What's he doing?
TDK, absolute waste. I think Link, he's a fantasy veteran, should know better.
Oh, maybe the timer ran out and it was an auto pick or something.
Yeah.
Jed Anderson. I don't know what to say about Jed Anderson.
Is he retired?
He's at Gold Coast.
There you go.
I don't know. Wait and see. Good luck to you.
He hasn't even got a face on his thing.
Yeah, exactly. McInerney at...
Great pick. I think McInerney's a great pick.
Only mid-status, though?
Yeah, but I just think he's good depth, Who knows what's going to happen with Shield? He's going to play every game. He has tremendous upside. Gets a lot of outside ball.
What do you mean Shield? Oh, because he's also on the bench.
Yeah.
Right. Just checking you didn't think Shield played for...
No.
Sydney.
Not that, Matt. Come on.
All right.
That's insulting.
Jacko Haitley. I'm not sure about that one. Linko, he'll be starting in the sample, mate. James Jordan.
I just want to see what's his forward depth on there.
So he's got Jed Anderson. That's why he's gone Jed Anderson. Forward status, playing midfield, and that's it.
I think he's in a bit of strife. I think you'll need to do some trading.
I've got a few forwards on my bench. Linko got Jackie Zeeble sitting there. He's playing halfback, so I might be trading for liver or something.
Overall, I'm giving that a 6 out of 10 for Lincoln selection of players.
6.75 for me.
All right, moving into Lenny's. Rebranded from Lenny's Lads, just Lenny's now. I don't mind it. Clean brand recognition. Another veteran of the AFL fantasy.
Jack Sinclair is his first defender. Very good pick.
Great pick.
Probably the second best after Doherty, you'd think, based on last year. Not sure how Ross Lyon and his new game plan will affect him. He should be a heavy scorer still. Gussie Brayshaw, I think he might be playing a bit of inside, so great pick in the back line.
Well, apparently he signed his 6-year contract because of the promise to be playing a bit of inside. So
well, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
Ridley, sound. Jack Scrimshaw. I'm not sure he was in the starting 22 in the preseason.
Is that right? Well, you'd think with Hawthorn's, young team, you'd seriously hope that Scrimshaw with a couple of years.
I think that's why it was a shock to me when I saw it. Anyway, Rory Laird, no comment. We know
Great
how good
pick.
he is. Piggy
Superstar.
Parish, Piggy Mitchell.
Piggy Mitchell is Piggy Mitchell going to be Piggy Mitchell this year? We know that he's coming to a new club. A lot of talk around him being an immediate pick in everyone's classic teams, but there's been some murmurs around his role at the Pies this year.
Well, Pendles came straight out and said, I don't think it'll be the Tom Mitchell that averages 35 touches or something like that. So I think there's going to be a lot of guys going through that midfield. You know, a lot of guys trying to get a lick of the ice cream. So Tommy Mitchell, Jack Chris, Pendles, Nick Dacos. I'm missing a few. So there's a lot of guys that are going to
Josh Dacos.
No, he'll be mainly wing, but
okay.
DeGoey. Just back in your corner, mate. So yeah, there's a lot of guys going through there. So if he's getting those high CBAs, then obviously he's going to score. But he's obviously a little bit older than when he won his Brownlow, so I think he'll score really well. You had to pick him when he's there.
Yeah.
George Hewitt, Hopper, Matty Crouch. So Matty Crouch broken his leg. I'm not sure. I think that was after he picked him. So a bit of bad luck there already.
Yeah, it's tough. Don't like to hear that at the start of this year. But I really like how we rounded out that midfield regardless of Crouch's injury. I think Hewitt's a great, solid contributor. He'll be averaging 90 plus. He loves to tackle. And I think he balances Carlton's midfield really well. Jacob Hopper, when Lenny's took Jacob Hopper, it broke my heart. I had my eyes set on him. Thought about all the years that we were going to have together. And as soon as he took Hopper away from my grasp, that really sunk me. I think he's going to be an absolute pick this year, 100 plus, guaranteed.
Yeah. Rowan Marshall, best ruck in the game.
Tim English?
Nah, Rowan Marshall, mate. Best ruck in the game, full stop.
That's
Paddy
bold.
Ryder's out of there, so Rowan Marshall's number one ruck, and he's going to score.
First choice in everyone's classic team as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Himmelberg in the forward line. He's playing forward, so it's not a good pick for now.
If he's playing forward, then that is a shocking pick.
Well, that's the thing. It's a long competition, so who knows where he ends up in a few years' time.
Well, I think Kingsley just wants to play him forward. I think thinking Mark McVeigh was taking the crazy pills playing him in the back line all last year. I don't see Himmelberg going back, and I don't see him being a good fantasy scorer again.
Okay, we'll wait and see. Archie Perkins, young player. Only forward status is interesting.
He'll get mid status. He'll eventually get mid status.
But you want him to keep the forward status is the point. So that sounded way too. I don't know. Sorry, Matt. Didn't mean to be so abrupt there or rude. Toby Green, good pick. Philippou, hoping he can come on. He probably won't have a forward status going forward, but good pick, high draft pick. Sard, Lipinski's injured, but he'd be a good. I reckon he'll keep his forward status.
Yeah.
Cully, good Tristan Xeri, good pick. He'll take over Goldie full time soon.
Yeah.
Lewis Young is a real interesting one late in the draft.
Well, I think as your last pick in the draft, you're really clutching at straws. So Lewis Young.
I still would have thought there'd be someone better than Lewis Young, the key defender out there, but.
Look, I don't know. He can take an intercept mark or two. Lewis Young has got good hands. Maybe that's where the thinking's coming in. Is he in Carlton starting 22 anyway?
Yep. Liam Henry, another one.
Another interesting one.
Don't mind it. Lanch's Hull Destroyer.
Well, what are we rating Lenny's team?
Oh, I always forget to do that.
I'll give him a 7. I liked it. Actually, you know what? No.
Forward's a bit thin, but he's
6.5.
No, I reckon he's a 7.5. He's got a good midfield and the best ruck in the game and a good defense.
It'll be interesting to see what he does with Matty Crouch. Who replaces Matty Crouch on that bench?
He's got Jai Cully, a bit young. Saliga, yeah, he's a bit thin. Jared Lyons, I'm not sure he's in the team.
Well, I'll give him a 6.5. I'll see with my 6.5.
Lanch's Hull Destroyer, Footy Rhino 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac Cumming, Daniel Rich, Luke Ryan, Ed Richards.
Pretty solid backlines.
No superstars.
No young and upcomers. Ed Richards maybe, but all were proven performers.
I would have thought he could have got Ed Richards before. Or I reckon Ed Richards is almost his best pick, or second best pick there, and he got him
certainly
last.
A slider, yeah.
Cal Mills, LDU, Tom Green, Whitfield, he'll get back status, Brad Crouch, Jack Chris.
Great midfield. Tom Green's going to become one of the best players in the competition this year.
Yeah.
I think he's a slider getting him in his third pick in his midfield.
So Whitfield will go back. Who's he got on the bench for his mid? He's got Elijah Hollins, Cam McKenzie, Treloar.
Treloar, brilliant.
Or Travis Boak. Great midfield.
Great midfield.
Nothing more needs to be said. Braden Pruce, big risk, but I like it.
Is he number one for GWS? Matty Flynn floating around?
Nah, I think he's above Flynn. That's my mail.
Yeah. Take a look at his forward line, and he's got one of the picks of the draft in Tim Turano.
Charlie Curnow against the average teams. You're hoping he can kick a bag and score well for you. Wayne Miller and Sammy Power-Pepper, average players, but a little bit weak in his forward line with a strong team. I reckon this is a good team so far.
Yeah.
And he's gone quite young on the bench.
Anyone jumping out
Hollins.
to you on that bench?
Yeah, so
Obviously,
he's gone high draft. I like the Taron Thomas pick.
I do too. Obviously, another
Yeah.
controversial pick, but I think he's got tremendous upside. Could become a star again. Keepers league. I think fifth pick on his bench. I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, I like it. So Mackenzie, Hollins, Sonzi, Rankin, and Windhager are all young players who I think can become really good players, and he'll be tossing up who to delist. I reckon it'll probably be Shuey with his age.
Yep.
But yeah, I reckon that's a pretty good team. I'm giving that a 7.5.
Yep. I'm gonna give that a 7.5 as well. What a great pick.
Well done, Lanch's Hull Destroyer. So now we'll move on to the Spaceman,
Yeah.
and he'll review his own team, and then I might give my thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting from the back line, I've gone with Tommy Stewart. All right, another veteran scorer. He's been a great performer for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't see that changing. I think it's a safe bet. I don't think anything too dramatic's changed in Geelong's back line to make him score any less. I still see 95 plus being the standard for Tommy Stewart. And then we go into Jordan Clark, Dan Rioli, and Shannon Hurd to finish off. Now, you queried my Jordan Clark pick.
Did I?
Yes, you did. You queried my Jordan Clark pick. And I think, given the rest of my backline, Rioli, Hearn, I think they'll all average between 85 and 90 this year. And I think it's a solid selection of players. Dan Rioli had his first year at halfback last year, performed extremely well. And I think he will only go up from there. Shannon Hurn, obviously, probably last year, maybe another year. But I don't think we need to push him out. He scored 110 plus in the preseason game. He's obviously still got good scores in him. If Eagles aren't going to be winning many games this year, the ball's going to come back in the back line a lot. And he was still taking West Coast kickouts. So, sound back line. Keen to hear your thoughts.
Nah, look, I really like Shannon Hurn. Everyone goes, oh, it's his last year. Why would I draft him? But guess what? That's why you delist 5 players at the end of the year.
Bang, exactly right. Going into my midfield now, my first pick of the draft, super happy with this young star, Bailey Smith. Started like a house on fire last year, averaging 110 plus for the first month or so. I think he'll come back to that form this year. Obviously had a bit of off-field issues last year, but I think he's, another redemption story. He trains the house down, looking as good as ever, and I'm thinking one of the top tier players in AFL fantasy this year. And then same goes for Jai Simpkin. I think he will only go up. Another young star will be in my team for, 8 to 10 years at least. Josh Dacos, again, upside only, in my team for 8 to 10 years. He's been looking really good this preseason, so I'm really happy with that pick. And now we get into a suite of these. I touched on this at the start of the podcast. Taylor Adams, Jack Vine, and Dion Prestia, all very similar players inside Bulls at their clubs and around similar ages. I just think they're going to be averaging 90 plus. And safe bets to have in my team. Probably will only be in there for the next, maybe 3 years. But again, super happy with how that midfield's been round out.
Yeah, I think I agree. I really like I'm going to contradict myself here, but I like the Bailey Smith pick. I feel like he's going to explode like he did early in the year, but I just think it was too early. I would have loved to pick him at around, I think you got him at 3, did you?
He was my first pick. Yeah.
I think it was at 3.
Yeah.
So I would have had him in the sort of probably pick 6 or 7 sort of thing. So I think it was a bit early, but guess what? When your player's there and you want to take him, just take him.
I wanted Brayshaw. I wanted Dunkley. They were both gone. Baz Lanka was next on my list, so I grabbed him.
I like it.
Riley O'Brien obviously caused a lot of controversy at the time when I picked him. I think it's foolish for people to criticise his pick at all, really. He got dropped for 1 game last year. He's still 27. He's going to be averaging 90 plus. Scored really well in the preseason game. He's going to be Adelaide's number 1 ruck. Yeah, I just think he's just a safe bet. Lock him in your ruck. Maybe I took him a little early. Maybe 1 round early.
Or 2.
Maybe 1 round early. We'll say 1 round early, but safe bet. Lock him in. He's going to be there for the next 5 years. Good to have you in my team, Riley.
Yeah, I'll back you in there. A little bit early, but I don't mind it.
Now we get into my forward line. Now, look, like most people's teams, I'd say it's my weakest line. Zach Butters, star, going to be in my team for 10 years. No worries there.
In the midfield,
No, I think he will maintain his forward status. I'll back him to maintain his forward status. Maintained it last year. I think he will maintain it for the next year as well. Jeremy Cameron, yes, key position players, do they score well? I think Jeremy Cameron is the best player in the competition. There, I said it. And I think he will just continue to kick goals. As Tommy Hawkins, he's out for round 1. I think Jeremy Cameron's going to kick 8 goals in round 1. And he'll score 110 plus. And I think he'll have a few of those games in him throughout the year. And then be averaging, 85-ish from there on out. And then Luke Jackson, future-proof in my team. Riley O'Brien got me a bit nervous when people started criticising Riley O'Brien, so I was like, I better get a young star in. So I got Luke Jackson in my forward line. Obviously, bit of a unicorn, not really sure how he'll go this year, but he could burst out on the scene, who knows. So I reckon lock him in my team for 10 plus years. He's there, I've got him in my pocket. Thanks for coming, Leaky boy. And then Jaden Stevenson. Now, he has been a good scorer.
I know.
He has been a good scorer. And I think maybe Alistair Clarkson could be the man to get him to become a consistent performer. He's got good scores in him, even if he turns the ball over every now and again. Fantasy doesn't count for efficiency. As my last pick in my forward line, slim pickings, I think he's just about right for where he fits into my team.
A few thoughts.
Yeah, please.
So I think Jaden Stevenson, he played the second half or the last quarter in the North Melbourne preseason game, so I'm not sure he's in the best 22. And look, he might be there round one when the team's named on Thursday. But yeah, look, if someone's not in the best 22 at age 23, I'd be a little bit worried about the pick, but he's highly talented. Hopefully he can...
Tremendous upside.
He can get it right. He does have the upside, so look, I don't mind it. I'm not sure he's going to be there round one, though. Jeremy Cameron... Not a bad pick, but to quote Pet Money Sniper, this is Dream Team, not the Coleman. Onto your bench?
Yeah, onto my bench. So I think I've got a pretty decent balance here. Couple of old heads, few young stars. Charlie Constable, I'm really happy with. I think he'll perform really strongly in Gold Coast team for at least the next 10 years. He's also a bit of a classic bolter as well, I think. So we'll be keeping my eye closely on him as a bench and mid-depth, defender and mid-depth. I think he's a good pick, mainly for my defence. Jack Lukosius, obviously got him in the forward line here. I think there's a really good chance of him getting defender status and also becoming a bit of a piggy off that half-back line, taking intercept marks, taking kick-outs, and just becoming an overall star. Obviously a highly touted pick. Tremendous upside, future-proofing my team there. And that same goes for the next pick with Campbell Chester as well, defender mid-status, playing round one. Looking forward to seeing how he goes. I've also got Oscar Baker there. So Oscar Baker got me really excited because I watched him play live and I was like, who's this kid? I thought he played at Melbourne. But no, he's at the Bulldogs now. And he's starting in their best 22 according to mock AFL teams.
Lockie Hunter's spot.
Lockie Hunter's spot, exactly. He had a great preseason game. Fourth bench pick, I think. Safe bet. Tremendous upside. And again, future-proofing my team there. And I've gone Harry Mackay, slim pickings when it comes to forward line. I think this guy's got a few good scores in him this year. Hopefully averaging around that 80 round range, I think. Same goes for Blake Acres. Don't really know how he's going to go this year. I think another 80-ish scorer. Could perform really well at Carlton. Could not. Again, took a risk there, but I think it might pay off.
Sam Durham,
like him. Think he's going to be a future star. I think he's a bargain. So happy to have him in my team. And then I've rounded out like I did with my midfield, I've rounded out my bench with a couple of safe older heads. Zach Tui, I think he's got 85-ish average in him this season. Jeremy McGovern back in the team. He was in All-Australian form before he got injured last year. Had a really good pre-season game. If the Bulls going to be spending a lot of time in Eagles defence this year, which I think it might, I think he's going to perform really strongly. And Jake Stringer, 2 years ago, he was almost All-Australian with the form that he was in, and I think he's got another really potentially good year ahead. But obviously out for the first few weeks injured, but we'll just see how that plays out.
Yeah. Just think you're in a little bit of no man's land with that bench. I don't think it's necessarily young or talented.
Lukosius, Constable,
Lukosius,
Chester, Baker.
Lukosius playing forward at the moment with no signs of going back, but I agree. I think at some point of his career he could end up a sort of a rebounding halfback, so I was looking at him as well. Look, I don't love the bench, I've got to say. Overall, what do you rate your team?
I give it a 6.5.
Yes, not happy with it.
Well, I think in regards to the other teams, I think there are a couple of teams better than me. I think there are a couple of teams worse than me.
What do you put it down to? Didn't do the research? Didn't have the spreadsheet like me? Or
Well, I didn't have the spreadsheet like I could have done more research, but I went on gut a lot. And, my guts helped me out a lot in the past. Like Matty Cruiser in 2017, got him in for round one. No one got him and ended up being the highest averaging ruckman that year. So my gut got me Matt Cruiser in 2017, and my guts got me this team, and I think it's going to hold me in really good stead.
Yep. I'll give you a 6 there. Lastly, definitely not least though, we've got Nalvinator.
Take us through your team, Nalvinator.
So I'm not going to go through every player individually for 5 minutes like you did. I'll sort of skim over it a little bit more. But starting off with Nick Dacos in the back line,
Just give me a little bit of insight,
He's
mate.
going to be the star of my team for the next 10 years.
Yeah, great pick. Can't complain there.
Nothing more really needs to be said. Now, this isn't quite in draft order because I've shuffled it around a little bit, but I've got Elliot Yeo, Brodie Smith, and Hunter Clark. So Hunter Clark is
Now, why have
playing
you shuffled it around a little bit?
because, for example, I took Ashcroft quite early, but I don't think he's going to be starting on my field.
Brilliant. Yeah, fair.
Hunter
choice.
Clark rounds out my back line. So he had high CBAs under Ross. I think they've got a heap of injuries. I think he's going to have midfield minutes and should score reasonably well. Also young and a high draft pick. So hoping he comes on.
Yep.
Elliot Yeo, we all know we hope we know what we're going to get with Elliot Yeo. Back to his best. Brodie Smith, I got him really late, but I think he should score reasonably well. My back line's not super strong. Paddy Cripps, Ollie Wines, Luke Parker, Patrick Dangerfield, Lockie Ash, Scott Pendlebury. So
Right,
not
Lockie
overly
Ash.
strong. The theory behind it is, and the reason my backline's a little bit thin, is because I feel like Lockie Ash, he'll definitely get defender status, and Scott Pendlebury might as well if he's playing a little bit at half back. So I feel like that'll really strengthen my backline, but it's also the reason behind me needing a little bit of midfield depth, and I might sort of try orchestrate a couple of trades with a few teams that have got a strong midfield. But yeah, Cripps, Wines, Parker, I think you know what you're going to get there. Paddy Dangerfield at the end of his career, I got him quite late. I think he's an example of someone who should score really well, or not really well, but I think he should be above 85.
Any chance of a forward status, you think?
Potentially,
this year?
yeah, potentially. But he's an example of one of those guys that everyone just skips over because he's so old. But
I was surprised he stood that late.
Yeah. So I do want to win the flag this year, whilst also future-proofing my team, as you would say.
Yep, you got a future-proof.
Brodie Grundy in the ruck, he's in that top tier.
Yeah, you got him late. Good pick.
Maxi, he's younger than Gorn, so he should be pretty good. Josh Dunkley, second pick in the draft. Nothing needs to be said there. Isaac Heaney, I feel like he'll keep his forward status long term.
Gee, he did me dirty last year, Isaac Heaney.
Yeah, that's classic though.
Yeah.
Not our keepers league. I feel like he's going to keep his forward status. Ben Cunnington, I got pretty late. Again, I'm winning it this year, mate. Going with Ben Cunnington.
Yeah.
Dusty Martin. I don't know who to start my forward line, so I've gone Cunnington, Martin, Shea Bolton, Jack Zeeble, who's playing half back. I feel like Jack Zeeble can go massive, like a Grant Birchall.
I see Cunnington just playing a different role this year. I don't see him being a big scorer.
Let's get his preseason up.
I see him maybe, having maybe a bit more of a defensive forward role potentially.
69 in the preseason game with 80% time on ground, 69% of the CBAs. So I feel like it's the role that you're looking for. High percentage of CBAs.
Look, as your third forward, again, slim pickings in that forward line. I've been saying it all podcasts. It's hard to find those gems, and he could be one, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, that rounds out my team. Dusty Martin and Shea Bolton. I'm going to find it hard to work out who to field out of those two guys. And same with Cunnington and Zeeble if Zeeble's playing half back. But Lockie and Dunkley and Heaney.
Well, game Thursday night, Bolton or Martin. Both big performers on those Thursday night round.
I think I'll start with Dusty. I have to start with Dusty. If Dusty kicks 5 goals or something, I'll be kicking myself.
Will you start with Cunnington over Bolton?
Yep, Cunnington's definitely ahead of those two, I think, playing inside mid. Although Shea is as well, but I just don't think he scores as well. Onto my bench. So this is where I was really wary of not going too young.
Yeah.
I was passing up guys like Ollie Hollins, George Wardlaw to go those experienced heads that are going to be able to come onto my field immediately rather than a Hollins who might take 4 years to become a really good player. So that's what my strategy was for my bench. To go through it, I banked Ashcroft and Callahan pretty early, so they're going to be stars of my team for a long period of time. And like I said earlier, once I was at the top end of the draft, I just wasn't comfortable with letting them slip through and go all the way up and back. I wanted to grab them early, and I was prepared to do that. To the backs I've got on the bench, Vlosten and Dyson Heppel, experienced guys who can score immediately, not superstar scorers, but they'll be reasonable and I'll feel comfortable fielding them. Ed Langdon and James Harms. So Ed Langdon in the midfield and Jai Caldwell in the midfield. Jai is a little bit younger in that middle bracket who could become a really good player.
Yeah.
Langdon, I feel comfortable fielding him. Harms as a mid forward, Shea Bolton as a mid forward, and Zeeble as a forward. Feel like I can field any of them. Sam Draper. Look, I had to pick up backup. I didn't have to pick up backup ruck, but because he was there, I thought there's been so much hype about him for so long. If he's ever going to break out, it'll be in the next year or two, and I'll be able to work it out by the end of the year when the delisting period comes around. So I feel like he could, like Max Gawn, I feel like he really broke out around the similar age that Draper's at the moment. So, yeah, that's just a one that you sit on the bench and see if he becomes a really good player. But yeah, the main thing in my team was Ashcroft, Callahan, and Dacos. Once I got those guys, I was just going for experience and not going for any other spec picks because I've got the young stars there. So what are you rating me, mate?
Well, look, I think you got a great team for 2023. Really, really strong team for 2023. I'll probably give it 7.5 for 2023. But longevity, I'm just not sold. You know, I think, if you go down to your bench, I don't know how many even decent bench years a couple of those players have. I don't think Jack Zabel's going to have a big year. I think his best is well behind him. I think Ed Langdon, I think he will be a good bench pick for the foreseeable future. Nick Vlossen, again, don't know if he's pretty sure his best will be behind him as well. Heppel, I feel his best is behind him. Draper, I agree. He's there. Get him. Big upside. Like it. Ashcroft, Callahan. Look, obviously good to get. You wanted to take them early. You took them early. Personally, wouldn't have taken them that early, but they're there. Yeah, I just don't know about Ben Cunnington, Dustin Martin either. Yeah.
They look good in the forward line. Dustin Martin just sitting there.
Dustin Martin sitting as your F4 it looks real pretty, but I just don't know what to think. I think it could be hit or miss. 2023, I think hit. I think throughout the remainder of our keepers league, I think you'll be having to do a lot of changes.
Yep, don't mind it. Difference of opinion with the old versus young strategy. I was quite clear with my strategy, and I feel like I executed it. So I'm happy with it. I feel like it's reasonably even, and it's anyone's game, I think, except maybe who'd we vote? Maybe Pet Money Sniper. I feel like he'll be the first to rebuild.
Look, I think Harry Perryman's going to make or break his season, to be honest.
His next 5 seasons.
His next 5 seasons.
So the question, I think we know the answer, but who is going to be the first team to blow it all up and officially announce to the fans that they will be rebuilding and basically trying to be a part of the Harley Reid sweepstakes? Who's the next best up-and-coming number 1 draft pick?
Well,
likely.
I think we're looking at it.
I think it's Pet Money Sniper.
Yeah, I think it's Pet Money Sniper. It's just really hard to know. Like Tim English, great pick. Jordan Dawson, great pick. Obviously stars for next 10 years, but it's just that Harry Perryman as your M1. It just doesn't sit well with me. It just really makes me feel a little uncomfortable, a little
I feel
queasy.
sick looking at it.
Yeah. And James Warple, who knows? A lot of question marks on that team, but I think best team. I think Asher Lanch is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think Asher Lanch is looking real strong, and another probably putting his best foot forward. He's had a couple of down years in fantasy, so I think he's due to bounce back. He's always, and that's in classic, so I think he's been putting all his time and effort into keepers, and I think it's clear to see why.
Yeah, he's experienced in the keepers game, and it's showing here, I think. So look, I'm mindful we've been going for ages, and hopefully everyone is still listening, all the fans out there. But do you want to touch on your classic team? We're not going to go through your classic team, but just give me a point of difference. Who have you got in your classic team that's a bit out there? Because we all like a point of difference. See, I've gone the Bont. It's not too out there, but like I said, I think he's going to win the Brownlow. And look, he might be out of my team by the time Thursday rolls around, but at the moment I've got him. Other than that, it's pretty similar to the traders, I got to say.
Look, my point of difference was just going to go real high premiums, and then I looked at the traders team, and it was quite similar, even though I don't listen to the traders podcast. But I've got a couple of young stars in my team that I'm not ready to share with the public. Got a couple of things in the works. Yeah, I'm very confident in my team. I like the Tim English, Ryan Marshall duo. That's what I've gone for. I've gone for absolute number 1 premiums as well in all other positions. And then not too many in-betweeners.
Okay, don't mind it. Last thing to wrap up, we're going to give a big prediction, a bold call for the classic season. And mine is the winner of AFL Fantasy Classic will start on the field. Will Ashcroft, Cam McKenzie, Ollie Hollands, and Will Phillips.
So
all on the field.
So you're saying your team's gonna...
Well, that's why I do have those all on the field, but I'm saying that is what the winner is going to have. And you know what? And James Warple. James Warple will be there 1, 2, 3. Will be there mid-4 with those other 4 guys rounding out the midfield. So very light in the midfield, but that's what the winner of fantasy is going to start with.
Yeah, don't mind that. Don't mind that at all. I think the money this year is in the forward line. I think, obviously, light on forwards, once you get past those first 5 or 6 premiums, and I think you've just got to get them all in, basically. I think you got to load up your forward line, get those guaranteed star performers, It can't bank on any bolters in that forward line. I think the values in the midfield and the defence. I think the winning team is going to have 5 premiums in their forward line.
I like it, and that just about wraps up the
Yeah.
first podcast for Keeping It Real. We'll all see you next week. Thanks for listening to the first episode of the Keeping It Real podcast. Looking forward to the season ahead.
We'll get some very special guests on the podcast too. But I think as far as first potty goes, I think we absolutely killed it.
Yeah. First go.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.